My name's Jordan Sinclair. I'm 30 years old, live in Portland, Oregon, and a few years ago I found out I was never meant to stay. My mom called me a temporary gift. Not out of love, not out of tenderness, just logistics, like I was a package that overstayed its welcome. Growing up, I never really questioned it. I mean, I had a roof over my head, clothes that fit, food on the table. But there was always this difference, a tension I couldn't name. My older sister Harper got the goodnight kisses. I got the closed door. She got piano lessons, soccer games, and birthday parties with themes. I got hand-me-down cleats and a reminder not to ask for too much. When I was 8, I asked my dad if I could join Harper's swim team. His response? "Let's not push it, buddy. You're already lucky to be here." I thought he meant financially. I thought we were just tight on money. But no, he meant something else entirely. My parents are the kind of people who smile in church, bring deviled eggs to the neighborhood barbecue, and pay off their credit cards in full each month. On paper, they're the dream. But behind closed doors, everything was about image. I was there to complete the picture. Nothing more. I started realizing something was seriously off the day I turned 16. I had finally saved up enough to get my learner's permit. I needed my birth certificate to get it processed. My mom hesitated, said she'd look into it. A week passed, then 2. She finally handed me a document with my name on it, but no hospital name, no attending physician, no time of birth. Just a state seal and 2 blank lines where parents' names should have been. I asked her what it was. She said, "Some kids just get different paperwork. You wouldn't understand." Then she changed the subject. I didn't understand, but I couldn't let it go. Fast forward to 23. I'd just launched a small startup with 2 friends from college. We were developing a digital platform for virtual classrooms, and things were finally looking up. My name was on articles, podcasts. People started noticing me, and that's when Harper called. She said Mom wanted us all home for Thanksgiving. I hadn't been back in 2 years, but fine, I'd made it. Maybe this time would be different. It wasn't. At dinner, Mom told a neighbor that Harper always had the brains, and Jordan just got lucky with timing. Then she turned to me and said, "We did what we could for you, but you were never meant to be ours forever." I laughed, thought it was some weird metaphor, until she added, "Your mom was unstable. She left you with us. We were supposed to foster you until things settled down. But she disappeared. We had no choice but to keep you." Just like that. In front of everyone, with cranberry sauce still on her fork. I looked at my dad. He didn't deny it, just nodded once and went back to carving the turkey. Harper sat there frozen, fork halfway to her mouth. "What are you talking about?" she whispered. "We're twins." Mom scoffed. "Biologically, no. You were born a week apart. That's close, but not quite." That's when the pieces started falling into place. All the times I didn't get picked up from school on time. All the parent-teacher nights they skipped. All the Christmas cards where I was just absent. I left the next morning, drove back to Portland in silence, my hands shaking on the wheel. I didn't even stop for gas until the light blinked red. I didn't speak to them for over a year, but silence doesn't mean peace. I spent that year spiraling, working 80-hour weeks, drowning myself in code, coffee, and distraction. I told myself it didn't matter, that I didn't care, but of course I did. Of course I did. The final blow came on a Wednesday night the following winter. I was walking home after a late meeting with our dev team. Slushy snow was falling, soft and quiet. I had headphones in, hoodie up. Didn't see the SUV until it was right on top of me. They said I flew 20 feet, that I was lucky to be alive. That if the paramedics hadn't been so fast, I'd have bled out on the sidewalk. But I don't remember any of that. I just remember waking up and learning my parents had been called. And what they said when the hospital asked for permission to operate? I wasn't their child. They didn't want to be responsible. They signed the DNR, and that's when I knew, truly, finally, that I had never been part of their family. But that wasn't the end. That was just where everything started. When I came to, the world felt like it had a pillow over it. Sounds were muffled. The lights were too bright. Everything moved too slow and too fast at the same time. I remember blinking, once, maybe twice, before passing back out. Next time I opened my eyes, there was a woman in navy scrubs leaning over me, clipboard in hand. She had curly red hair pulled into a messy bun and tired eyes with deep, permanent-looking laugh lines. I didn't know her, but she said my name like we'd been friends for years. "Hey there, Jordan," she said softly. "You're in the ICU. You made it through surgery. You've been out for 3 days." I tried to talk, but my throat felt like gravel. She held a straw to my lips. "My name's Emma," she added. "I'm your night nurse. You gave us quite a scare." I wanted to ask about my parents, about Harper, about anyone, but I couldn't even get my tongue to move. I guess it didn't matter. Emma answered anyway. "We contacted your emergency number right away. Your parents. But they declined to authorize treatment." I blinked. "They told the attending you weren't their responsibility? That you were a temporary placement?" Her voice dropped when she said it, like she didn't want the words in the air any longer than necessary. I stared at her, trying to understand. Emma just shook her head, biting her lip. "I've worked in this hospital 17 years, she said. "Never seen anything like it. You were listed as DNR, do not resuscitate, until your coworker Lena showed up with your insurance and signed off." Lena. God, Lena. We'd worked together for 3 years. Ate microwave pad thai at 11 p.m. over Slack, vented about our dumb product manager, shared Spotify playlists when things got dark. But I never thought she'd be the one holding the line between me and death. Emma smiled, seeing the recognition on my face. "You've got some good people, Jordan. Maybe not the ones who gave you their last name, but real ones. The kind that show up." I don't remember much else from that night. But I remember the relief. The way her words settled into me like warm soup on a cold day. Someone had shown up. Someone had stayed. The next few weeks were a blur of tubes and needles and groggy mornings. Emma came every night. She brushed my hair when it got matted. She adjusted my pillows without me asking. And when I was strong enough to talk, she told me everything. How my parents had hung up on the trauma team. How the attending surgeon nearly refused to operate until Lena begged and offered her own credit card to hold the charges. How my dad called back 2 days later, not to check on me, but to ask about my health proxy and whether I'd written a will. "I shouldn't tell you this," Emma said one night while checking my vitals. "But he asked if your startup had been acquired yet. Wanted to know who'd be listed as your next of kin for the payout." She paused, scribbling something in the chart. "You weren't a son to them, Jordan. You were a line item. That hurt more than the broken ribs, more than the migraines from the brain trauma. I'd spent my whole life trying to become someone worth loving, someone so successful they'd have to admit I belonged. Instead, I'd become something they could discard. Because I wasn't Harper. Because I wasn't blood. But Emma didn't look at me that way. Neither did Lena. Lena visited every other day. She brought socks and chargers and dumb gossip from the office. She told me about a viral tweet our CEO posted that backfired. She made me laugh, even when laughing felt like knives in my chest. "Just so you know," she said once, "your parents tried to call the company after the accident. Asked HR for your medical records. They said you were incapacitated, that they needed to step in. And?" She smirked. "I told HR to forward everything to legal. Then I hired a lawyer." "You what?" "I'm not letting them get anywhere near you or your shares," she said, eyes dark. "You almost died, Jordan, and they treated you like a footnote." That was the first time I cried since the crash. Not from pain, but from the weight of being protected. Really, truly protected. Not tolerated, not conditionally helped, but defended like I mattered. The hospital released me 6 weeks later. My body was still wrecked, but I could walk with a cane and get through most days without a full breakdown. Emma hugged me goodbye and slipped a folded piece of paper into my bag. "You're not alone," she said, "even if it feels like it." That night, I opened the paper. It was a handwritten quote. Just 6 words. "Chosen family is still real family." I pinned it to the wall of my temporary apartment, right next to a photo Lena printed from our first product launch. We were smiling, soaked in beer and pizza grease, standing in front of a whiteboard with half-erased code behind us. For the first time in months, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I didn't need them anymore. Maybe I already had enough. Maybe that was the start. Healing wasn't a straight line. Some mornings I woke up thinking I could conquer the world. Other days, I sat staring at a spoon for 10 minutes because my fingers wouldn't work right. But if there's one thing trauma teaches you, it's how to adapt. I moved into a small studio above a bookstore Lena's friend owned. Cheap rent, no stairs, good heating. Perfect for someone still hobbling around with a cane and daily migraines. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. And that's when the letters started coming. The first was from a lawyer in Seattle, representing my late great-aunt, my biological mother's sister. Apparently, she'd passed a few months before the accident and had named me as sole beneficiary in her will. A house, some bonds, a handwritten note sealed in an envelope marked, "For Jordan only." I sat there on the kitchen floor, legs crossed like a kid, just staring at the envelope for a long time before I opened it. In her uneven cursive, she wrote, "Your mother couldn't raise you, but she never stopped loving you. I couldn't take you in when she passed, but I always followed your life from a distance. I hope this house gives you roots you were never allowed to grow." I didn't know whether to cry or scream. This stranger, someone I met maybe twice as a toddler, cared more about my future than the people who raised me. The second letter came a week later. Different tone. This one was from my parents' lawyer. A formal request. They wanted to be considered for conservatorship due to my ongoing cognitive limitations post-injury. They were trying to take control of the estate my great-aunt left me, arguing I wasn't mentally fit to manage my own affairs, that I was vulnerable. That word hit me like a slap. After everything, after leaving me to die, they had the audacity to say they were the ones protecting me? I called Lena. She came over with her laptop, her glasses already halfway down her nose like she knew she was about to turn into war mode. "Let's make some calls," she said. First, I contacted Emma. She'd saved every shift note, every call log. She even had a printout of the hospital's internal form where my parents explicitly refused financial and medical responsibility, refused to authorize treatment, signed off as non-kin. "Send it all," I told her. Then I got a hold of the hospital's risk management office. I asked, very politely, if security footage existed of my ICU room and the intake desk. It did. We subpoenaed the footage. It showed everything. My parents arguing with the attending, my mother rolling her eyes while saying, "We're not paying to keep him alive." My dad asking if the hospital had some kind of charity fund for people like me. My lawyer, Camille, a sharp, soft-spoken woman with a voice like granite, watched all of it in silence, then leaned back and said, "We don't need to play offense. All we need to do is stand still and let them run face first into a wall." We filed a motion to block the conservatorship with evidence attached. Camille CC'd their lawyer directly. 3 days later, they withdrew the petition. But it didn't stop there, because now they wanted to visit the house, my house, claiming there were sentimental items they had a right to collect. I didn't respond. Instead, I had the locks changed, installed cameras, set up alerts for any motion at the front door, and on the hall table just beyond the entry, I placed a letter. Not rage-filled, not vengeful, just facts. Their own words, transcribed. Their refusal, notarized. Their abandonment, documented. And one sentence at the end, handwritten by me. "You gave me silence when I begged for love. Now I'm giving it back. Permanently." I didn't have to yell. They did enough damage in quiet. The night before their scheduled visit, Lena brought over Chinese takeout. We sat on the floor, watching dumb reality TV on mute while the security camera streamed on my laptop in the background. They really think they're still the heroes, I said quietly, stabbing a dumpling. Lena didn't look up. Let them. You've already written a better story without them in it. And she was right. Because what was coming next wasn't revenge. It was something deeper, something slower. It was my life, reclaimed. Saturday morning came with gray skies and that quiet kind of cold that seeps into your bones. I sat at my kitchen counter, mug of burnt coffee in hand, laptop open to the live security feed of my aunt's old house. My house now. The letter was already on the hallway table, placed there the night before. Cream stationery, my handwriting steady and deliberate. I hadn't sealed it. I wanted them to read it right there where they used to pretend to be decent people at holiday dinners. Camille had advised me not to be home. Lena agreed. You don't need to witness it in person, she said. You already lived through the worst of them. But I needed to see it. Not for vengeance, exactly. I just wanted to stop feeling like I was the one making things up. At 10:07 a.m., the front camera pinged. My parents' silver Acura pulled up to the curb. My mom got out first in her usual trench coat and pearl earrings, like she was walking into a charity gala, not the ruins of our relationship. My dad followed, phone already in hand, no doubt checking emails or crafting whatever narrative made him feel in control. Then Harper stepped out of the back seat. That I didn't expect. She looked hesitant, dressed simply. No coat, even though it was cold. She hung back as my parents walked up the porch steps. My chest tightened, seeing her again. I hadn't spoken to Harper since the Thanksgiving blow-up. The night I learned I wasn't her twin, not even legally related. We'd texted once after my accident. Just once. She said, I heard you're recovering. I'm glad. I mean that. I never replied. Inside the camera feed, I watched my dad jiggle the doorknob. It didn't budge. It's locked, he muttered. Well, of course it is, Mom said, as if surprise locks existed. Try the back. He didn't move. Then she noticed the letter. What's that? He picked it up, flipped it over. It's addressed to us, he said, flat, in his handwriting. Harper spoke up, her voice barely picked up by the mic. You're going to read it here? Mom ignored her. This is his idea of drama, she said, unfolding the paper. God forbid he pick up a phone like an adult. Then silence. Not for a few seconds. For a full minute. On the feed, I watched her eyes move across the page. Watched her mouth go tight. Hands start to tremble. My dad leaned over her shoulder, reading along. His lips pressed into a thin, familiar line. When they reached the final paragraph, the part where I quoted their own words to the trauma surgeon, we're not responsible for him. He's not ours. My mom's face collapsed, not into tears, just hollowness. She handed the letter to Harper without a word. He didn't stop her this time. Harper read slowly, brow furrowed. I could see the weight of it settle on her shoulders like bricks. When she was done, she just whispered, Is this true? Neither of them answered. Mom? She asked again. Did you really tell the doctors not to save him? Dad stepped in. He's twisting what we said. Harper shook her head. It's in quotes, Dad. It's literally your words. How do you twist that? You don't understand. No. She cut in, voice rising, shaking now. I don't understand. I don't understand how the people who raised us could walk away from their own son when he was dying. I don't understand how you still think this is salvageable. I gave him everything. My mother said suddenly, quietly. He had a home, clothes, school. We didn't have to take him in, you know. Harper's laugh was bitter. You didn't take him in. You kept him like a secret. You used him. And when he got inconvenient, you tried to pretend he never existed. Dad grabbed the letter back. We're leaving. This was a setup. Harper didn't move. You two go, she said. I'm staying. I leaned forward instinctively, my coffee gone cold beside me. Was I hearing that right? You don't need to be here, Mom snapped. He doesn't want anything to do with us. This was his message. No, Harper said. This was his boundary, and you stomped on it for years. They tried to argue, but she was already walking away, off camera, toward the living room. They followed for a second, but then Dad turned back toward the door. He's going to regret this, he muttered. He already did, Harper said from off-screen, and you still weren't there. At 10:32 a.m., they left, just like that. And for the first time in my life, they were the ones walking away while someone stayed behind for me. I sat there in stunned silence, fingers hovering above the trackpad. Then my phone buzzed. Harper, I read everything. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want to talk. Please. I stared at it for a long time. My hands were still trembling, but I typed back, Monday, Eleft Cafe June. No expectations, because maybe, just maybe, this wasn't about revenge anymore. Maybe it was about reclaiming the ending. Harper showed up early. Cafe June was half empty, just the way I liked it. Rain tapped soft against the windows, and the barista was playing some old Elliott Smith track that made the whole place feel like a memory. I spotted her by the window, nervously turning her mug in slow circles. She looked up when the bell above the door rang, and for a second, we just stared at each other. No smiles, no awkward hugs, just the weight of everything we hadn't said, sitting between us like a third sibling we never had. I sat down across from her. Thanks for meeting me, she said. I nodded. You stayed. Her eyes watered immediately, but she blinked hard. They said so many awful things. Things I didn't know. Things I should have seen. She swallowed. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know I believe you. And I believe in you. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a magic fix. But it was the first real thing she'd said to me in years. I told her everything. About the accident. The hospital. Emma. Lena, the footage. The estate. The conservatorship. Her mouth dropped open more than once, especially when I said, they tried to claim I was mentally unfit. 3 days after leaving me to die. I don't know who they are anymore, she whispered. I shook my head. I do. I've always known. You just couldn't afford to see it. She didn't argue. She just asked, what now? That question took months to answer. We started small. Weekly coffee. Then helping her study for her board exams. I taught her how to cook something besides oatmeal. She helped me install shelves in the guest room. One night, after too much wine, she said, I want to move in. Just for a bit. Until I figure things out. I said yes, not because I'd healed, but because I'd stopped expecting them to fix what they broke. Meanwhile, my parents weren't quiet for long. They tried again, this time with something dumber, a civil suit. They claimed emotional distress, said my letter and the video caused them irreparable psychological harm, that I'd defamed them. We went to court. Camille stood calmly before the judge and played the raw ICU footage. My dad's voice, clear as a bell. She's not our problem. Let her go. The judge sat in silence, jaw tight, hands folded. When the video ended, he looked at their attorney like he wanted to throw him out a window. The suit was dismissed with prejudice. The judge wrote in his ruling, truth cannot be defamatory, especially when it is recorded, verified, and delivered by the person you abandoned. I didn't cheer. I didn't gloat. But I did breathe. The story made its way through local circles. My dad's retirement party got canceled. Mom stepped down from 2 community boards for health reasons. Family friends stopped calling. A cousin texted me out of the blue. I had no idea. I'm sorry. I didn't answer. That apology wasn't for me. They left Portland 2 months later, moved somewhere in Florida, according to Harper's aunt. They didn't say goodbye, just slipped out, like they always did when the lights got too bright. The house was quiet after that, but not in a lonely way. Some nights, Harper would sit on the porch with me, glass of wine in hand, watching the sky change. She'd ask about our childhood like she was trying to rewatch it through my eyes. Sometimes I'd answer. Other times I just sat in silence. One evening she asked, "Do you think they ever loved you?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "I think they loved the idea of being good people," I said, "and I didn't fit in that story." She nodded slowly, didn't push further. There's a kind of peace that comes from no longer needing people to change. I spent most of my life trying to earn something that should have been given freely. Turns out, the moment I stopped asking, I finally started living. Now I build software for hospitals, systems that flag unconscious patients who may still be aware. Inspired by the nurse who never left. Funded by the company I once built just to prove I was worthy. Funny how pain can turn into purpose when you stop carrying it like a shame. You don't always get closure from the people who hurt you. Sometimes closure is choosing to keep walking anyway. And sometimes the people who stay, who really see you, aren't tied to you by blood, but by choice. If any part of this felt familiar, if you've ever been the one left behind or the one who had to walk away, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. You never know who might need to read it. And if you want to hear more stories like this, real, raw, and unfiltered, I hope you'll stick around. We're building something honest here. Thanks for listening to mine.